Hello and welcome to episode 7 of my Git By Example series. If you've missed any of the previous episodes and you want to get caught up, check out this playlist linked right up here. Today we're going to be going over workflows that are specific to GitHub and how we use them. So you're going to have to bear with me. Typing is going to be a little bit difficult because I did completely shatter my wrist. But that's okay. So in this episode, we're going to be jumping between the GitHub web interface and our command line. I'm going to be doing all this GitHub stuff in the web interface as I think it's a little bit easier to explain, and it's what I personally rely on more. But there is also a GitHub command line interface that you can use, and if you guys want, I can cover that separately in another video. If you guys want it, just let me know in the comments. So GitHub is at its heart just a remote Git server with some extra features layered on top. So you've probably heard of a lot of these tools such as forks and pull requests as they're central to a lot of software development nowadays. But there are others that you may not have. But when your repository is on GitHub, there are also a bunch of settings associated with it. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the web interface. So this right here is our example repository, and you'll notice we don't have all of our changes pushed to it, so we can just go ahead and do that now. All the changes we made are on master. But if you remember in the last episode, we ended up actually overwriting a change. So instead of git push origin master as normal, if we want our thing to reflect that overwritten change, we can just add -f and it will force the changes from our local repository onto remote. This is a dangerous command and you should use it sparingly and only if you are very sure that you are completely fine overwriting all of the commit history that's on your remote with whatever you have on local. But if we go ahead and run that, then you'll see it forces the push that we have right here. And if we go ahead and update our repository, you'll see that we now have those changes from last time. So now we're going to take a look at the settings of a GitHub repository. So there are a bunch of settings here you can see in a bunch of different sort of features. You can change how it looks and things like that, what features are enabled and all things like that. And then also there are a lot of things here which we're going to go a little bit more deeply into. So specifically, if we go to something like manage access, we're going to have to go into something called sudo mode here. So you're just going to have to log in and now you will have more direct access. Currently, this is completely public repository, right? So anyone can do anything, anyone can view it, and anyone can fork it, and anyone can send pull requests to it from a forked repository. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the settings tab here, you get somewhere called the danger zone, where you can do a bunch of like really power user things, specifically like changing the visibility, archiving, or deleting the repository. And there are a lot of things like that. So if that's going to be in the options tab here in settings, if you have a repository that's private, then you can add collaborators right here and they will still be able to work on it. So that's one of the things that's going to do. But let's say we're talking about something like a big open source repository that is public. In a sense like that, you're not going to have to add everyone as a collaborator so that they can make changes. Instead, you're going to want to rely on something called forks. So what forks are essentially just mirrors of the repository that will track from it, where the owner of the fork can also then make their own changes. So if you hit this fork button up in the top corner, you'll get a copy of this repository, and you will be able to then make changes to it, and then also send pull requests back to this main repository with your changes that you made in your fork. So then that will end up being fed back to the person who manages the project, which will generally be a maintainer on an open source project, or if you're on a private project working on in a company, it'll be like the lead developer or a project manager or someone like that. And that will allow them to then make those changes. So if you're working on a private project or as part of a development team, then the normal workflow that I've seen in most places in industry is not to use forks, at least if you're in a small development team, but to rather just create a new branch and never touch the master branch unless you are the person who is supposed to do that, and just to create different branches on here, and then after that use pull requests to pull them in. So we will go over pull requests just about now. So since pull requests work by merging, they can occasionally run into situations with conflicts or other things that prevent a clean merge, and in that case GitHub will let you know and you should fix things. So let's go ahead and make a pull request on this repository. So the way that we're going to do this is we can go ahead and do our standard git switch to get onto a new branch right here, and we'll just do it with a -c, and we'll just do, we'll call this like pull branch. And then if we go ahead and do that, we're on our new branch. Let's make some changes here. I'm just going to keyboard mash because it is too much effort for me to type things with one hand. So if we go ahead and save that, and then we can git commit -am, and we'll just call this add change in pull branch. So once we have that commit set up, then now what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to push this to a remote branch. So you'll notice when I set this up, I didn't set it to track from a remote branch or anything like that, like we went over. And that's just because generally in my workflow, I find it makes more sense to do it like this. And now we'll just do git push origin. And then we'll, instead of doing master, because that's not where we want to go, we want to go to origin pull branch. So if we go ahead and do that, it's going to create a remote branch called pull branch, push our changes to it, and you'll see that we also get this link right here because this is set up to track from a GitHub thing. So this is how we can go right to a pull request screen, and this will allow us to create a pull request. So this is how a pull request works. It will have a title, which will generally just be the latest commit message, and then you can write a further thing right here or attach files to it or anything like that explaining why this should be merged. So then once that's done, you'll see here you have all the changes right here. You can assign people to review it. You can assign people to to just check it out. You can add labels to it that will sort of show what this thing is supposed to address. Projects, if you're using GitHub's project management. Milestones, if you're doing it for a certain release or something like that. And anything like that. You can write in here with GitHub flavored markdown, which I did a 15-minute video on, so you should go ahead and check that out. And from there, you can essentially do things with this. And the way that you will update this pull request, let's say a reviewer finds something wrong with it, is you just push to that same branch and it will update the pull request. So with that, we've actually tackled most of the basics functionality of GitHub that I want to talk about. So now I want to talk about the collaborative aspect of it. So all of the features that we've talked about in this episode are interconnected, and GitHub then gives us a very handy way to reference them from one another. So it's important to know how to use GitHub flavored markdown, which I just talked about, and I linked up in a card right up there. And that is what every single text box on GitHub is going to use. So there are also some GitHub specific things you can do. For example, if you want to reference a different issue or pull request, then you can use a # followed by its reference number. So here we don't have any pull requests or issues opened up on this repository. So let's go ahead and create this pull request right here. That is a very strange issue. I don't know what just happened there. That is trying to link us. Okay, yeah, that's a very weird thing with GitHub right there. I'm going to report that as a bug on GitHub, I guess. But here, so now you'll see our pull request is open and it gets a tag of 1. So if you wanted to then reference this from anywhere in GitHub flavored markdown, you could go ahead and do # and it will add autocompletes for all of your different issues and pull requests. And you can do 1 as a link right there. And then once you comment this, you'll be able to go ahead and let's just comment this right here, and this will turn into a link. And if you click it, it will go back to that issue. You didn't see a change here because we're on that same issue, obviously, because I don't have more than one. But that's it. And then you can also reference different users with an @. So since I'm the only person on here, it's just going to give me this. And if I comment that @IanGlickman, then if you click this link, it's going to go to my profile. And it's also going to notify me that I got mentioned in an issue. So those are the important things to do there. And then if you want to do slightly more powerful things, like let's say you want to reference a specific sort of repository in a different issue in a different repository, the way that you can do that is you can do the username of the owner. So I don't have the ability to type out my full name right now, and then a / and then the name of the repository, and then a # with the ID of that object again. And yeah, so that is another way that you can reference things throughout GitHub. So then on this pull request right here, you'll see right here we just have this merge pull request button because it does not have any conflicts with base. But then also it has some other very handy things that you can do. You can do a squash and merge, which is just going to add the commits without doing it with a merge commit. So that is essentially the equivalent of a fast forward merge or something like that. And then you can do rebase and merge, which will then rebase from master onto this branch and then do a fast forward. So you can pick whatever merge works best for you. We can do squash and merge here since we're just fast forwarding. And then if we go ahead and do that, confirm squash and merge, then if we go back to that, we'll see here now we can delete this branch right from here. So we can go ahead and delete this branch, and if we jump over to our code, we will see we have this new change right here in fake.md that added that. So that is pretty much it for GitHub functionality, and that is pretty much everything I wanted to tackle today. We've covered pretty much everything a normal user will do with GitHub. In the future episodes, I'm going to tackle my standard workflow for projects, and then if you guys want, I can go ahead and talk about some more advanced Git tools that can be extremely useful to you in your workflow. So that is going to be it for today. Thank you for bearing with me dealing with this, and be sure to like this video if you learned something from it, and get subscribed so you don't miss any of my future videos on this or any other topic, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.